we'll see how long this lasts. Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Britt, and if you haven't subscribed yet, you probably should, because sometimes I talk about geeky things. Hi, if you're new here, I used to talk about geeky things all the time. It used to be the main aspect of my channel, and I am gonna dive right back into it by talking about the newest season of Doctor Who. Now, a little history about me and Doctor Who is I started watching Doctor Who when I was a young kid. The episode of Classic Who aired on PBS, I think, when I was really young, back in the 90s. And I really didn't understand that it was just this long-standing TV show. I'm not even totally sure I knew the name of the series. I just remember watching a goofy adult man-child running around with a really long scarf. Yeah, so my first Doctor was in fact Tom Baker, and I absolutely adored it. I thought he was so funny. I thought the show was funny. I also grew up a Trekkie, so like my parents watched original Trek, we watched The Next Generation and Voyager all when I was a kid, so I was already kind of into that aspect of, or that genre of television. Plus I grew up watching Star Wars, so like my parents really didn't give me much of a choice. I was gonna love Doctor Who, even though my mom didn't see it until I was getting ready for the 50th anniversary back in 2013, where she and I watched the entire reboot. And I also introduced her to Davros, because when she was introduced to the Master, she was less excited when the Master was introduced in season 3. So I did not want that to happen to my favorite, like, big villain of Doctor Who. I don't like the Daleks very much, but I did, however, really love Davros. So I wanted to get her introduced to Davros, so I got a whole bunch, or actually I think every single serial he appeared in Classic Who, starting with Genesis of the Daleks, all the way through, like, every Doctor from Tom Baker through Sylvester McCoy met with Davros. So I got all of that in DVD form, and we watched all of those so that when she got to season 4, she knew who Davros was, and it was a lot more impactful for her. Anyway, I know back then they were called series. Here in the United States we call them seasons. It just is what it is. And I know this one is starting over as season 1 versus series whatever. I lost count of how many New Who series there have been, so I could probably figure out if I counted or if I hopped on my Max and looked at it. But anyway, I have come in and out of Doctor Who quite a few times in my history of loving Doctor Who. I really fell out of it during Stephen Moffat's run because he infuriated me. He needed to be reined in by a showrunner, and so when he was showrunner, it just didn't make sense. There were just too many plot holes and I just couldn't handle it. And then I kind of fell off again a little bit during the Chibnall era, but not because Chibnall irritated me. Yes, there were storylines and episodes that I was not the biggest fan of. A lot was going on in my life. And watching television, especially new episodes of television, was just not something I could keep up with. And so I ended up getting caught up again then for the 60th anniversary last November. And I was just very excited to see what direction Russell T Davies was gonna take now that he was back at the showrunner helm. And some episodes were gonna be written by Stephen Moffat, which I think were some of the best episodes of New Who, where the episodes where Russell T Davies was the showrunner and Stephen Moffat was the writer of the episode. Hello, blink, don't blink. Don't do it. Matter of fact, when I got my mom into Doctor Who, it was kind of funny. After she had seen Blink, we have this little cherub statue that we put out at my aunt who died when she was a child. We put out at her grave every spring. But we had it at the house and it sat in the backyard. Obviously, I let Cosmo out into the backyard at the time. And I mean, he goes into the backyard too, obviously. I was letting Cosmo out, and my mom would every single morning, because she gets up before I do, she'd go outside and she'd move it just a tiny bit closer. So every time I opened the door for days after we watched Blink, after she saw Blink for the first time, I saw it, I think, for the 3rd time at that point, she would move it a little bit closer to the house, and I was terrified until one morning it was sitting on the stoop inside, and I let out this horrifying scream because it genuinely startled me. And that was where the joke ended. But we still talk about it to this day. Like, to my dad, who has never seen a single episode of Doctor Who, as far as I know, he's never seen a single episode of Doctor Who. He actually didn't want to watch it at one point because when I was like, hey, I think you'd really like Doctor Who, or currently, my parents and I are currently rewatching the original Star Trek, and I was like, honestly, if you like this, you'd probably really like Doctor Who. And he's like, I don't like British comedy. And I was like, Dad, it's not a comedy. I mean, yes, there are funny moments, but it's a sci-fi series, much like Star Trek. Matter of fact, it's older than Star Trek. So there you go, older by 3 years. Anyway, I digress. Let's talk about this season. I was actually immediately hopeful for Ncuti Gatwa because I feel like he has that fun nature to him from the things I'd seen him in before Doctor Who, because he was in Sex Education, which is a British television show that I did like. I never finished it. I need to finish it. And then he also was in the Barbie movie. Those were the two things that I knew him from prior to Doctor Who, or prior to him doing Doctor Who. So I already was kind of familiar with him to an extent, not as familiar as I probably could have been, but definitely familiar. And I felt like he had that childlike essence, but could also go dark. The kind of doctor that I really love, the doctor that's a man-child, but when he needs to, he can bring this realness to the character. And I really knew that, or I really felt like Ncuti Gatwa could do that beautifully. So I was already very hopeful. So when I watched the Christmas special on Christmas Day, you know, obviously that I was a little, not about Ncuti, but I did not love that Christmas special. I didn't love it. I mean, I don't know, I get really picky about things. I don't know, man. I don't know. That was not a strong start for me. I know some people really loved it and some people really hated it. It just wasn't a strong start for me. Like, loved Ruby, loved the kind of concept of, you know, she doesn't know where she's coming from. She's this kind of unwanted baby, all that kind of stuff, right? Like, I appreciated all of those things about it. I didn't love the execution entirely. So I was already like, okay. Plus we obviously already knew at that point, I think it had already been introduced at that point. Maybe it was sort of shortly after the Christmas special. I can't remember when Russell T Davies came out and said that he was going to go on more of a fantasy route with Doctor Who versus sci-fi route. And that already kind of stirred some thoughts in my head about like the direction Doctor Who was going to take, considering the way Doctor Who had kind of taken a weird route in the weird fanboy, like, fan fiction that Chibnall did. I mean, mind you, I didn't dislike Chibnall. I loved Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor, but I don't know. They kind of went a little weird with the retconning of Doctor Who. But it's, you know, it is what it is. It's canon now, so we just have to accept it and move on, or have to give up on Doctor Who. You know what I'm saying? So I can get on board. I can get on board with the changes. It's fine. I was already kind of having some feelings about that, again, with the direction that Chibnall kind of took the show in aspects I didn't like about that. And so I had already kind of had feelings, and then the goblin thing, which I didn't mind the goblin thing because obviously any creature can exist within the realm of Doctor Who. It's not a big deal. But my issue was, it just was weird. It just didn't hit me right, I guess. I don't know. And so his first story just kind of made me go, I'm a little nervous about it. I need episodes. Series 14, according to Wikipedia. This is series 14, so there you go. All right, let's look at the actual episodes. Space babies. Space babies. I was very concerned about space babies. But I do appreciate the fact that it was basically just, you know, a social commentary about, you know, reproductive rights here in the United States and the direction that that's going. So I loved that that was the social commentary, and I felt like this season had a lot of really great social commentary, which I really appreciate. It's one of the things I love about Doctor Who. It's one of the things I love about sci-fi in general. Like, one of the big reasons why I was a big Gundam fan when I liked anime was because of the fact that it was a big social commentary, and you know, with Doctor Who, there's a lot of really good social commentary there as well. But obviously here in the United States, the majority is reproductive rights or healthcare. Just a very, you know, vocal minority disagrees with that statement. And so that being said, you know, unfortunately we have people in place right now that have made that very difficult in the United States. Like, it's not easy to own a uterus in the United States right now, and that's just a fact, unfortunately. But I liked Space Babies. At the end of the day, the overall concept was really great. I felt like it was, like I said, a really great social commentary on what we experience today, especially in the United States. Knowing this was going to a United States audience, it was a really interesting social commentary about what happens here today and what it's like to be in the United States, especially as a uterus owner. And so I really appreciated it, especially the joke where they made, I mean, it wasn't a joke, but it was a joke, but it was like one of those I'm uncomfortable jokes, right? Where they're like, oh, so they want to keep this ship running because, you know, they have, you know, embryos living up here, but they don't care about what happens after the babies are born. Welcome to United States. Yeah, so I did really appreciate that episode in that regard, even if the concept of it or the execution of it was a little cheesy in my opinion. It was just a little weird, you know, with everything they had going on, with, you know, the CG, all that stuff. Just it was a little odd, it was a little off, but I did appreciate the overall story and the social commentary. The Devil's Court, which guest starred Jinx, who I had not actually heard of before this. Maybe I have seen Jinx before, I don't know off the top of my head, but this was I mean, because they looked familiar, but I don't know what gender pronouns they use, so I'm gonna use they, them. This was the first time I was actively aware of them. I thought that it was a really cool episode. It was really, I mean, it was a bit much, I'll be honest. It was definitely a bit much. However, I did really, again, I enjoyed it. I don't even know. I think it might be my least favorite, aside from the Christmas special, my least favorite in the season. And only just, I mean, but I loved every episode. Like, every episode was really great. I really liked every aspect of it. It just didn't, excuse the pun, strike a chord with me as much as far as the storyline is concerned. I thought the acting was fantastic. I thought the writing was really good. It just, the storyline itself just didn't, like, I'm gonna say it again, didn't strike a chord. I'm sorry. I'm very, very sorry already. I take that back. That is not my least favorite episode. My least favorite episode is still coming up because it made me so angry. Anyway, moving on. That was not my least favorite episode, actually. Next episode was Boom, which the Doctor steps on a mine. That episode was very strange, but I really liked it because it really put Ruby in a very interesting position as the companion, because the Doctor was stuck. The Doctor was stuck right here, couldn't move, couldn't do anything, and if he did, something bad was gonna happen, like he was gonna, you know, blow up. And so Ruby ended up kind of having to be the hero of that story. I liked the, you know, overall, you know, arching story. I don't know, like I don't remember too many specifics about it, so you'd think that maybe that would be one of my least favorite. And it definitely is. It's definitely down there as far as like episodes that stood out to me are, you know, obviously going to make a bigger impact. This one didn't stand out as much, but I did really still enjoy it. You know, obviously another social commentary about healthcare, and especially probably healthcare here in the United States, which is completely and utterly broken. So 73 yards. This episode was so weird to me. So essentially we open with Ruby and the Doctor breaking this like shrine by accident, and it makes the Doctor disappear. So we don't really have the Doctor in this episode. There were a couple of episodes. The very next one, yeah, the very next one as well. While the next one had a lot more of the Doctor and more reminded me of Blink, just because of how like the storyline was set up, not with how scary it was or how much I wanted, you know, Miss Sparrow to be the next companion of Doctor Who, but because I would rather die than that lead be the next companion of Doctor Who. Thanks. But we're talking about 73 yards right now. This one really didn't have the Doctor. This one was really just Ruby, which I found very interesting. I really liked it. This was probably, this one or another one, my favorite episode of the season, series, again, whatever you want to call it. Amazing. I really liked how the storyline progressed, and I was curious about how they were going to fix it. And it was actually also, sort of spoiler alert, I probably should put like a thing at the beginning of like, spoilers going to be in this video, but it was kind of foreshadowing for the season finale of this season about like everything going to shit and then figuring out how to fix it, and then time essentially going back in a way, even though time didn't really go back. When it came to the season finale, everything was just put back to the way it was supposed to be instead. But in this one, time actually went back. But it was very interesting. And the one thing that they really didn't answer was, why were people scared of Ruby after they talked to, with, of course, spoilers, what ended up being older version of Ruby following her around, staying always 73 yards away, that really only Ruby noticed. But then whenever somebody, whenever she would point it out, somebody would be like, oh yeah, there's a lady over there. And then they'd go and they'd talk to her, and then they'd be terrified of Ruby after that, including Kate. Like, what? That was something that they never actually answered. They never answered the question as to why that took place. Why, unless I missed it, and please let me know in the comments if I missed it, because it's very possible that I missed it. And I was probably also playing The Sims or playing on my phone at the same time as watching this, because that's how ADHD works in my brain. I can't just focus on one thing at a time. It's very possible that I missed it. So please let me know in the comments below if I missed the answer to that question. But I just found it kind of interesting or weird and kind of unsettled at the end of that episode, where after I'd actually started to figure out that it was going to be the older version of Ruby at some point towards the end, just maybe a minute or two prior to the full reveal that it was the older version of Ruby that was just kind of following her around. That reveal, you know, I mean, was still surprising, but like I kind of figured it out a little tiny bit. Like I was like, I wonder if that's Ruby or a different version of Ruby or something, right? But they never fully answered that question for me, and so that left me a little unsettled at the end of that episode. But this one was genuinely a really well set up episode. I really liked how she was able to figure out what was going on, kind of in a way, I mean, in the sense of like what that woman was doing, and was able to use that to save the world, essentially, right? And I really liked that. And then of course the fact that that obviously in the end it goes back and they don't end up breaking that shrine. That does in a way create a little bit of a paradoxical like plot hole, because obviously like if that version of Ruby would never truly exist if they didn't break the shrine, but I guess in the concept of parallel universes, no matter what, they're gonna break that shrine in one of the parallel universes. So I guess theoretically you could explain it away with a parallel universe mentality, but in all reality, I mean, we have set up parallel universes before in Doctor Who, so I guess it's not completely outside of the scope of reasoning within the concept of the show. And I don't want to get too tied down in consistency or continuity, because obviously Doctor Who has changed a lot over the last 61 years that it has been around. So, you know, and they've retconned a lot of different things, they've changed a lot of different things, and we're not going to talk about the 1996 movie, 1995 movie, whatever, you know, Paul McGann's movie, because a lot of people tend to really hate the fact that they make the Doctor half human in that movie. But then I'm thinking, but the Doctor can also be a man or a woman. The Doctor could also be like a giant lizard. Like at the end of the day, like that reincarnation of the Doctor just happens to be half human. Didn't mean that he was born half human. I digress. Anyway. So I'm not going to get into a big philosophical debate about consistency or continuity, because unless it is a terrible plot hole,
which I talked about in my River Song video. I think, if I remember correctly, I talked about that because there was a big plot hole with River Song, and I don't like that character. The execution of that character was terrible. I like the idea. I like Alex Kingston. I don't like the execution of River Song. Terrible execution. Stephen Moffat, you messed up. You also messed up The Weeping Angels at some point by allowing us to watch an angel move, but I digress. That is a different conversation for a different video. So I'm not gonna get too bogged down in that, but at the end of the day, I don't know. There were just a couple of things about the actual episode itself that stood out to me that were not great, even though all in all, I loved that episode. Dot and Bubble. I have never been so infuriated during an episode of Doctor Who. I have never been so infuriated. Like, I hated that girl so much. I liked the episode. I liked the idea. Again, very good social commentary about the world we live in today. I don't want to get into the philosophical debate about how it's easier for neurodivergent people to live in their phones and have online friends or have friends that are not face-to-face with them. It's easier for neurodivergent people, and it's okay to have that, and it's not okay to shame people who prefer to have friendships in that way. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's not ruining our society. It is not ruining, you know, social networking, things like that. It has actually made the world much smaller and much easier to learn from people who are not within your circle. I grew up in a very small town in a very white area of Minnesota. In today's world, where I grew up in the 90s, right? So no social media, very limited internet, and internet was not what it is today. You know, especially because, like, back in the 90s, the big thing was stay off the internet because predators are there. And yes, predators are there, be careful. But that was like the big scare tactic to keep kids off the internet, even when we did have internet. So I really didn't actively engage with the internet until I was like nearly a teenager in the late 90s. But yeah, I in today's world where I can have friendships with people all over this country, all over the world really, but like thinking about the friends I've made here on YouTube, you know, I've got a friend in Texas, I've got friends in New York, I've got a friend in Oregon, I've got, you know, all of these really great people that I have met through the internet. It has made the world a lot easier for me to experience other ways of life and other belief systems, and it has helped me become a more well-rounded person. So please, for the love of God, stop shaming people for being on their phones. Off of my soapbox. Anyway, let's move on. However, there is obviously known evidence that social media is really, really, really bad for your mental health. So, especially when you are young and impressionable, the one thing I am very thankful of about my teenage years is that we really didn't have social media. The only thing that I ever had, I think there was also one called Friendster. I may have had a Friendster, but I didn't use it, but I used MySpace. And I was like 17 when I got MySpace. And then I was a freshman in college when Facebook opened up to anybody who had a university email. It was a very different time in my teenage life, and I look at, you know, my nieces and my nephew, my nieces who are teenagers, well, two of them are adults now, one is a teenager, and then my nephew who's almost a teenager, and thinking about how their existence is all within this social media realm, right? And I mean, luckily their parents are really great. My sister is a therapist, so like my sister is able to help them engage with that a lot more in a lot healthier manner, but still, like it's unescapable. I was a full-ass adult when people tried to make me make a life-altering decision because I had an opinion that they didn't like on the internet. It's inescapable, and social media does really bring out the worst in people, and it is really harmful for your mental health. And so again, I really liked that social commentary about that concept, that these people can't even walk without this screen in front of them telling them what to do. Like, I thought that was such a cool concept, such a cool social commentary. Again, I'm going to use that term a lot here, about it. And then to find out that this is just a world where people get to work just for a couple hours and then they get to go and party and they don't have to worry because they're just rich kids who get to live their life as rich kids. And I really appreciated that, and it really played well into our lead. Again, like I said a little bit earlier, this episode kind of reminded me of Blink in a way because we don't really have the Doctor. She's communicating with Doctor and their companion through a screen. You know, in Blink, it was a pre-recorded video that the Doctor was able to record based off of notes. It's so weird. Blink it's still like one of the best episodes ever. Like, let's just be real. This one, the Doctor was speaking to her in real time, along with Ruby, was talking to her in real time. So it was a little different, but it was still this concept of they needed to get out of the situation that they were in. Her and her celebrity crush who became her friend, and then murder victim. I'm so angry still about it. But yeah, she turned out to be an incredibly selfish individual, and did the life of somebody that she was enamored by, that she looked up to, that she was a fan of, and ended his life when he was trying to help her escape, and then lied about it when she got to where the Doctor was. And I sat there thinking, I don't even want her to be saved. Why would they do that and have somebody not be, and then have the Doctor save this person? Like, I don't, knowing what I know about this character, I don't want her to be saved. And of course, at the very end, they end it in such a way where she is not saved because, you know, she goes out into the wilderness where the Doctor knows that she and the others will be killed. And watching Ncuti's acting when he goes dark, like, I wanted to jump through the screen and hug him and say, it's gonna be okay, you can't save everyone. Like, I literally said it to my TV screen because I couldn't handle just how broken Ncuti looked in them. Ncuti Gatwa. Probably the best actor to ever play the Doctor. Is that fair to say? I think that's fair to say. He is, I think to this day, so far is the best actor, best actual, like, actor to play the Doctor. Not saying that he is my favorite Doctor of all time, because time will tell if that becomes the case. He's definitely up there. But as far as actual, like, technical acting is concerned, sir, from one actor to another, incredible, in-frickin-credible, let me tell you. Just such phenomenal acting. But yeah, I'm glad that episode ended with her probably dying, because I wanted her to. I didn't want her to be saved. Not after what she did to, I can't even think of his name. Yeah, we'll call him Chris, because that's the name that's stuck in my head right now. Moving on, Rogue. Have I ever told any of you how much I love Jonathan Groff? I think he was in Glee, wasn't he? I don't know. Anyway, I think that was where he was, like, best known from as far as television is concerned, but I was not introduced to him until Frozen. And I love Kristoff. We're doing a deep dive into Jonathan Groff and love him. And the fact that they gave the Doctor another queer love story just makes me very happy, because obviously with Jodie Whittaker we had a queer love story with the Doctor and Yaz, and now this time we have a queer love story with Rogue, and oh my god, I loved it. I thought they had incredible chemistry. I loved the banter. I loved how it just all felt, and the kiss, and then his sacrifice, and I hope this becomes an overall arcing story, and I hope that he comes back. I do, because I love Jonathan Groff, but also love the queer storyline, love the queer love story, and perfect for the first episode? Yeah, the first episode to air in June. So, mwah. Well done, Doctor Who, for giving us a queer episode for the first episode to air in Pride Month. So fantastic. Absolutely loved it. Absolutely freaking loved it. It was so amazing. I Really loved this season of Doctor Who. Can you tell? And then the season finale. And yes, I know there are 2 episodes. I don't care. When there is a to be continued, it is 1 episode to me. And that is usually how I watch them because I can't handle watching it with a cliffhanger. So it's 1 episode. Okay. I know it's technically, it's literally 2 episodes. Literally there are 2 episodes, but to me it's 1 story. So the Legend of Ruby Sunday. There is a lot to unpack here. Obviously, we knew that at some point, you know, given how the Christmas special went, we knew that there was going to be this storyline of eventually figuring out who Ruby's mother was. And I spent the entire time being like, is it going to be, they talked about Susan in the Devil's Chord, you know? And so I'm like, was it going to be Susan? Or maybe it might be Romana, because we still don't know anything about Romana. I mean, Romana is, yes, also a Time Lord, and theoretically all the Time Lords are dead, right? So theoretically, so is Romana, but theoretically so is Susan. So I don't know. But I don't know. I also have not listened to any of the radio dramas, so forgive me if I'm unknowing of something that's canon because I've not listened to any of those. I should eventually dive into those. I just haven't yet. It's just not a thing I've done. I was thinking maybe it's Susan. That would be a little off because like, she was a teenager in the 60s and she'd be a little bit old to have a kid that is, you know, my twin niece's age. Thinking about that, my parents were teenagers in the 70s. They're, you know, my twin niece's grandparents were teenagers in the 70s. So that being said, Susan might be a little old, but again, Time Lord, they age differently, obviously, you know. Or could it be Romana? Because I've always wanted to see Romana come back. Or could she be something else? And I'm not gonna lie, that was a little let down. I'm getting a little ahead of myself because technically we find out who the mother is in the final episode, but I was a little let down. A little bit. I mean, it was fine. It was beautiful. It was wonderful. It was a good way to write her out of the series, but it still just wasn't, I don't know. We'll get to it. But we return to Unit and with Kate and her team, along with Mel. I love seeing previous companions come back. It's always one of my favorite things in the entire world. Absolutely love it. But we have Unit able to help see, like in a bigger format, the day that Ruby was dropped off at church. They still couldn't see the mom's face. They still couldn't see her face. And then, you know, we have this big thing that kills one of our Unit members. And the way Kate reacted to that, I thought for sure she was going to like hold the Doctor accountable for that. And I'm often surprised the Doctor's not held accountable more often by Unit for a lot of things that happen, but I digress. I guess it's just, you know, the respect that Kate has for the Doctor because her dad had such respect for the Doctor. So we'll go with that. There is this weird cloud around the TARDIS and they can't figure out what's going on. And of course, the villain is revealed to be Sutekh, who we know from previous Doctor Who era classic Who stuff, which again, it was the first time we brought this villain back in a long time. Since classic Who, I don't remember Sutekh being involved in New Who at all. I'm pretty sure it was just classic Who. Hey everyone, just editing Brit popping in here to say that since filming this video, I have read some fan theories, and one big fan theory that has stood out that's been all over the internet that would introduce Sutekh essentially into New Who was actually at the end of Eccleston's era, or Eccleston's 1 season, when Rose took in the time vortex, that she was actually possessed by Sutekh based on where Sutekh was or how Sutekh was with the TARDIS. That's an interesting theory, and it's also a really cool theory of how Sutekh was actually introduced in New Who right at the beginning. Let me know what you think in the comments about that one. I don't know, it's been a minute since I have watched the reboot, but I am rewatching classic Who, slowly rewatching classic Who. I'm at Pertwee at the moment, if you're curious, so I've not gotten back to Tom Baker yet, but getting there. Thank you, BritBox. There is this woman who is named Susan, but if you just take S and then the last name, I can't remember. Anyway, it's an anagram of TARDIS, and that's what they think, that this might be somebody related to the Doctor, which might be Susan because her name is Susan, but it turns out it's really Sutekh, and all this
interesting stuff. And it's the same woman that's been appearing in episodes throughout. So it was very, very, very reminiscent of things like Bad Wolf and things like that. So that being said, I liked it. I really like stories that carry through, even if the episodes are really episodic. The fact that there are these little Easter eggs throughout the course of everything, and then it all ties together in the end, makes it so that you can go back and watch it and see it and pay more attention and be closer to it. And so like the Bad Wolf thing from the first season of the reboot, first series of the reboot, that Bad Wolf story just really made it work for me. Like, I don't know, I like it. I liked the overall encompassed idea of this woman appearing in like every episode. I think she appeared in every single episode, I believe, except for the Christmas special. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure she appeared in every episode. Then Sutek kills everybody except for the doctor, Mel, and Ruby, which then eventually Mel falls victim to Sutek as well. What we find out is that Sutek is also trying to find out the name of Ruby's mother, which is why I think I was so let down, because we have had this build up from the Christmas special about who Ruby is, where she comes from, who her mom is. She wants to know her mom, blah, 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 all this stuff, right? She's been adopted. She loves her adoptive mother, but still has this desire to know where she comes from and who her birth mother is. Though I do have to give one criticism to the writing, and she used the term real mother. No. We use the term birth mother. Your real mother is the woman that raised you, that incredible woman that raised you. That is your real mother. That is one gripe I have with the writing. What is that we shouldn't use the word real mother ever when it comes to birth parents. And it's okay to want to know your birth parents. It's okay to want to find out who they are. It's also okay to not want to know who they are or find out who they are or the reason why they gave you up. It's perfectly fine either way, but in no way are they your real parent. Your real parent is the person that raised you, loved you, and made you who you are today. That's your real parent. But I don't know, I'm not adopted, so I really can't speak to that, but I have friends that have been adopted or are adopted. I also have friends that have adopted, and that is just, to me, learning from them, you know. We use the term birth mother or egg donor sometimes. I know one friend that uses the term egg donor and sperm donor instead of birth parents, because they have no desire to meet their birth parents. It's so little desire that they're not even people to this person. So more power to you. It is your world. So I don't love that she used the term real mother a couple of times. That did irk me a little bit as somebody, again, who has friends that have been adopted, and friends who have adopted. And it just, I don't know, isn't my thing. I don't love it. But I think that's why I was so let down by the fact that her mother was just a person. Because why was Sutek after her? Why would she know who Sutek is, and why would she point? Like, I just don't. Again, much like I felt like at the end of 73 Yards, I felt like the end of this really left more questions. And being that we're not going to have Ruby again, I mean, she might appear here and there as previous, you know, companions have, sure, but I don't know. I don't know. I didn't like it. It just felt like there was this loose end that hasn't been tied up. Like, she was, I mean, I don't use the term unremarkable because she wasn't unremarkable, but like, because, I mean, obviously nobody's unremarkable. She's the most important person in the universe, as the doctor said. The most important universe is this person. But like, there were still questions to be left. There were still questions left on the floor here. There were still questions. I understand that this person was just a regular human who got pregnant as a teenager and gave up her baby. But like, I don't know. I wasn't. And not that she had to be
tied to previous Doctor Who. Like, I think that would have even been cheaper in all reality. Like I said, I was trying to figure out if it was maybe Susan or Romana or blah, 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 or blah, blah, blah. Or maybe she's related to Rose somehow. I don't know. Like, trying to figure that out. But at the end of the day, I think that still would have cheapened it to have her be this, like, incredibly important character. Or, like, this Time Lord that the Doctor didn't know existed. Or be Susan. I don't know. You know, all these theories that popped into my head throughout the course of watching this season of who Ruby could possibly be. And so, I don't know. It to me, it just felt weird because there was no reason for Sutek to be so crazy about who this woman was and why her baby was so important. I wasn't the biggest fan of that necessarily, of how it ended, but overall that ending storyline was really great. It was really reminiscent of Journey's End, which is weird for me to say because, like, Journey's End is my favorite episode in all of the reboot. Journey's End and Stolen Earth, that season 4 finale, is like my favorite episode in all of the reboot. But so it being reminiscent of it, and then me still having some pretty heavy criticisms about the execution of it, I don't know, man. It was great. I really enjoyed it. The final episode is called The Empire of Death, and I felt like it was done really well. You know, there were some really great moments, like where the Doctor grabbed Mel, and I even sat there going, oh, he knows. Because we, as the audience, had already known that Sutek was in her mind a little bit. The Doctor touched her, and I was like, oh, he knows. Like, there is that knowing look, and Ncuti has it down incredibly. I don't know, I really liked it. I liked the misdirects throughout the whole course of the season. There were a lot of really great misdirects, like Ruby coming out and the Doctor believing that the real Ruby was dead, and that this was one of the, you know, bird, what do they call them? I don't remember what they called them. Bird alien things. Cosplaying as Ruby, and she did, you know, the weird, like, little tick thing and stuff, and I was just really impressed. I kind of figured out that that girl that was hanging out with her was one of them at some point over the course of, again, shortly before. It wasn't like I was like, oh, from the beginning I knew I knew she was one of them. No, it was shortly before. There was something weird about one of the scenes right before the reveal, and I think that's when the audience was supposed to figure it out, but that's where I figured it out. But I liked a lot of those misdirects, and this one also has some of those misdirects as well. I don't know, I really liked it. Overall I felt like it was a really strong season. I feel like it was Russell T Davies at, you know, kind of his, not his best, because I feel like his best was season 4 of the reboot, before I lost count. I felt like season 4 of the reboot was his best, but it was definitely up there. I feel like he did a really great job. I feel like Ncuti did an amazing job. I felt like Millie did an incredible job. It irks me that she's I don't know if the actress is the same age. How old is she? Hold on, wait. How old is she? Okay, yeah, she's a little bit older than my nieces. She was born the same year as my twin nieces. And just reminding myself of how old they have become because they were born my senior year of high school. And the fact they're gonna be 20 this year, that is wild to me. But having the character's birthday so close to their birthday really made me go, oh, they're full ass adults. I mean, they're not, they're 19, but, like, you know, they're still legally adults, and it's just very strange to me. But yeah, and so I don't know. I felt like overall it was a good season. I really enjoyed it. I'm really looking forward to seeing what Russell T Davies and Ncuti Gatwa have in store for us going forward. I also really need to know who this woman was. This old woman that lived next to Ruby and her mom and her grandma. Her real mom and her real grandma instead of the birth mother, who I was, again, really happy that they were able to, you know, that was something I didn't talk about, was that the introduction of Ruby to her birth mother and how emotional that was. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful scene. I was crying, loved it. Again, really great way to write Ruby out of the show, but I'm very much looking forward to seeing what Russell T Davies has in store for us next and what Ncuti is going to do with the character. I'm very, very excited to see where it goes from here. So let me know in the comments what your favorite and least favorite episodes were this particular season. I don't even know if I had to pick a favorite. Let me look at the episode list again, because honestly, probably Rogue. Rogue was probably my favorite episode, and then my least favorite was the one right before it, Dot and Bubble. Those were my favorite and least favorite episodes in the season. And then let me know what you think of Ncuti's doctor. Let me know those things in the comments below. And if you made it this far in the video, thank you for sticking it out with me this entire time. I am very excited to start talking about geeky things again when I feel inspired to do so. So if you would like to see more Doctor Who content, please let me know that in the comments as well. Like this video, subscribe if you haven't, hit the bell for notifications, and I will see you all next time. You can see me rant about River Song if you click right here, and then if you click right here, you can see me try to decide who my favorite Doctor is between the 9th Doctor and the 4th Doctor, because they are my 1 and 2, and I think they will always be my 1 and 2. I don't know if anybody will ever dethrone either one of them, but Ncuti is definitely trying. So I'll see you all next time. Bye!